President Trump is on the defense after a New York Times article reveals information about his tax records that he has spent years concealing. The New York Times report shows Mr. Trump paid just $750 in federal income tax in 2016 and 2017. He did not pay any tax at all in 10 out of the 15 years before that. CBS News has not verified the information in the Times report. President Trump's taxes were also a topic when he ran in 2016.
Maybe he doesn't want the American people, all of you watching tonight, to know that he's paid nothing in federal taxes, because the only years that anybody's ever seen were a couple of years when he had to turn them over to state authorities when he was trying to get a casino license, and they showed he didn't pay any federal income tax. So if he's paid zero, that means zero for troops, zero for vets, zero for schools or health.
President Trump insists the New York Times report is fake news and made up. Our Paula Reid reports on the findings from the White House.
President Trump, in a press conference Sunday, denied a New York Times report that claims he only paid $750 in income tax in 2016 and 2017.
It's totally fake news, made up, fake. We went through the same stories. You could have asked me the same questions 4 years ago. I had to litigate this and talk about it. Totally fake news.
But when asked directly how much he did pay, Mr. Trump continued to tease the eventual release of his long-sought tax returns.
I look forward to releasing that. I look forward to releasing many things. I'm going to release many things, and people will be really shocked.
The New York Times obtained tax return data extending over more than 2 decades and found Mr. Trump paid lower taxes using questionable tactics, including a $72.9 million refund that is currently being audited by the IRS. While claiming losses for many of his namesake businesses, including his golf courses, Mr. Trump has maintained a lavish lifestyle by taking tax deductions on what some people would consider personal expenses, including housing, aircraft, and $70,000 in hairstyling for television appearances. Even though President Trump vowed to no longer pursue any new business once elected, according to the New York Times, he made $73 million from foreign deals during his first 2 years in the White House. In a statement to CBS News, Alan Garten, an attorney for the Trump Organization, said the New York Times story is riddled with gross inaccuracies. Over the past decade, the president has paid tens of millions of dollars in personal taxes to the federal government. He also said the Times rejected our repeated request that they show us any of the documentation, though the paper says it declined to provide records in order to protect its sources. The president has long refused to release his tax returns, the first president in modern history not to do so.
I will release my tax returns against my lawyer's wishes when she releases her 33,000 emails that have been deleted. As soon as she releases them, I will release my tax returns.
And has frequently made this argument against releasing them.
They're under audit, and when they're not, I would be proud to show.
However, an audit does not prevent the president from releasing his records. Democrats seized on the new reports. Minority Leader Chuck Schumer tweeted, "Raise your hand if you paid more in federal income tax than President Trump."
These new records suggest that the president's financial pressures are mounting as hundreds of millions of dollars in loans he personally guaranteed are coming due. Now, traditionally, excessive debt is seen as a potential national security vulnerability for public servants amid concerns that it could potentially open you to outside influence. Paula Reid, CBS News, the White House.
And for more on this, I want to bring in CBSN political reporter Caitlin Huey-Burns, who is in Cleveland, Ohio now, ahead of tomorrow night's debate. Hi, Caitlin. Great to have you with us. We'll get to the debate in a second, but let's talk about this report from the New York Times. It's painting a picture of years of tax avoidance, chronic financial losses, questionable tax credits. Break down some of what was revealed in the president's tax return data obtained by the New York Times.
That's right. In 11 of those 18 years that the New York Times studied, the president paid no federal income tax. And in 2017, while he was president, only paid about $750 in income tax. Now, compare that to a lot of taxes paid by working Americans. Those are the big headlines. But another big issue coming out of this is that his company reported big losses in order to get more deductions. And he was able to deduct things for personal expenses, some $70,000 for hairstyling for television appearances among them. So those are kind of the big ticket issues. And this raises the question of, first, how much will the public care about this, but also how much working Americans will care about the president not only not paying taxes, but even while he was president, just paying a small sum.
Right. It's interesting. Caitlin, you and I work in TV. I've never had a tax accountant tell me that I could deduct any of my hairstyling from my taxes. But aside from revealing that the president may not be as wealthy as he portrays himself to be, and depending on how you slice it, may be in serious hot water with the IRS, why should this information be of such concern to voters?
Well, you can talk about the political impact and then the substance of this. The political question remains whether this will sway any voters, undecided voters heading into the final month of the election. We saw in 2016 that it really didn't have an impact, or at least the president didn't pay a consequence for not showing his tax returns. The first presidential candidate then in modern history not to do so. It was a big issue in a debate that we saw, you played a clip of, and we saw him pay no consequence for that. He's continued to say that he has been under audit and has continued to evade the question of his tax returns. That's the politics of it. But the substance, I think, is really important, and one that voters should be assessing. This idea that the president didn't pay income tax for several years and only paid about $750 while he was president. And we talk about the importance of those taxes, what that money goes towards things like funding the military, goes towards things like funding healthcare programs and unemployment. These are big issues all of the time, but especially in a pandemic, I think that should be of importance to voters.
And then how is the Biden campaign reacting to this report about the president's taxes?
The Biden campaign wasting no time making this an issue. Today, they unveiled a video comparing the president's tax filings with the money paid by average working Americans like teachers and firefighters who pay thousands of dollars in federal taxes. So the interesting thing that we're hearing from the Biden campaign is that they're not so much focused on the idea that the president didn't pay any taxes for those 11 out of the 18 years the New York Times studied, but that he only paid $750 while he was president. So I think you're going to see Democrats really hammer home that message, that you, a working American, paid more in taxes than the president. Now, the Trump campaign has continued to say that the president is under audit and that he has paid taxes. The president is refuting this as fake news, but it's important to note that this is a message that the president has been saying for a while now. And I think this will be something that is likely to come up in the debate tomorrow night here in Cleveland, whether it's a question posed by the moderators or whether it's a question posed by Biden himself.
Absolutely. And I was just going to get to that because we have learned what the topics will be for tomorrow night's debate. And I wanted to get into what they are. As you just mentioned, we are definitely going to see questions regarding Trump's taxes now into the mix. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. I think this will be an issue of discussion in some form. The other topics for discussion, of course, are COVID-19. There'll be a lot of questions about the president's handling of it, likely, and also what Joe Biden would have or could have done differently. I think you'll see him pressed on those issues, the former vice president. Issues like the economy, racial injustice, and protests and violence across the country will also be top issues of debate, as well as the Supreme Court, which up until today had been the top of headlines heading into this first debate in Cleveland.
And of course, you are there in Cleveland, Caitlin. So what are you hearing about how President Trump and Joe Biden are preparing for their first debate?
As we know, these two men have very different styles when it comes to campaigning, when it comes to rhetoric and messaging. And I think that will be on display because that's also been on display in their debate prep. The president has said that he doesn't need a lot of debate prep, that he believes that his going back and forth with reporters while he is president at the White House or on the campaign trail have been able to serve as debate prep for him. He's not spending the time behind the scenes really getting ready. We know that he wants to go after Joe Biden on his mental acumen. He's already been trying to bait the former vice president, raising questions about whether he would take a drug test. Of course, there's no verified evidence for any of that. So that's kind of where he's going. And these are attacks and messages that the Biden campaign is expecting. The Biden campaign has been really busy, hunkered down in intense debate prep, calling lids on the campaign early in the day so that the former vice president can prepare for this debate. There's a lot of expectation setting on both sides. That is always expected at a debate. We're here in Cleveland, and we're on the campus of Cleveland State University, where we've been talking to students, these Gen Z voters who are going to be voting for the first time, this new generation coming into the electorate. They told us that they are going to be watching this debate very closely. One of them told us that she's going to be making some popcorn and watching it with her friends as well.
All right. Well, Caitlin Huey-Burns in Cleveland, Ohio, thank you so much.
Thank you.